you guys now. Very warm welcome. This is the second in the running series. Hopefully we'll do a few more. The Why Don't You, and this one is Why Don't You Coach the First Driving Lesson. Just want people's thoughts on this. Lee's trying to get in the room, of course. I'm just meeting Lee. So very warm welcome. I'm going to delegate to Kev, because I like dumping him in it. Kev, just as a little bit of a thought, as a recap of last one, what do you think was important, or what did you notice when reading? Kev, we can't hear you at the moment, so you've got to unmute your microphone.
Okay, I'm struggling. I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone last week. What was last week? Last week was all about, remind me?
Right, let's not do that then. It's going well.
I wasn't expecting that one.
No, all right then. Let's just go through a very quick, I don't know. Let's go a very quick hello from everybody.
Yeah, do introductions.
Yeah, just do the introductions. I think I'll have to do it because otherwise we've got to unmute everybody. We've got Gemma, we've got Sammy, we've got Phil, Di, John, we've got Ian, we've got Steve, we've got another Ian, Ian with two eyes. I got you. We've got Neil, and we've got Terry, lovely Linda, and we've got Lee. They're the basics so far. There will be more people trying to attend, and hopefully I've let them in. But they're all I can see at the moment, and I don't know if there's other people. Got to change the view, maybe. It's on speaker view at the moment. I just need to see everybody. That's it. I've got as many people as I can see at the moment. So other people are invited, but this is how it's going at the moment. There is that, I'll just kind of, rather than doing a recap, I will just start with, there is that perception, and I hear it a lot. Well, you can't coach the first lesson anyway. So it's something that I hear other ADIs tell me, and yet I don't have the same opinion. It doesn't mean to say I'm right. And some of the people here will have an opinion on the same thing. Has anyone got anything really strong they want to say before we even get going on this? Put your hands up, guys. Has anyone got any really strong opinion about whether they do or don't coach the first lesson or from the start of their training? Okay, Kev, down to you then. How do you feel about coaching from lesson one?
I think it's the basis of where we start the coaching process, really. Even by, I know we've had this conversation before, by asking them where they want to have the first lesson. Is it outside the house if it's suitable, or do you want to go somewhere quiet, car park, road, whatever's suitable? I think it's the first point really of where coaching starts, and they start taking responsibility from that first question. You know, where do you want to sit? Where do you want to go? I think it's, you know, just a simple question really. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Di's going to say something. Di, remember to unmute.
I've unmuted. Yeah, I mean, my view on this really is, as Kev just said, I totally agree with him. But, you know, pupils are often going to be thinking about their first driving lesson before they even get in the car. And so my first question normally is, how did you visualize this lesson going? How did you picture yourself on this first lesson?
Oh, I like that. Oh, don't unmute yourself. Tell me more. What sort of reactions do you get?
Well, as I say, you know, it varies because a lot of them have no thoughts on it at all, or have talked to their friends as to what they did on their first lesson. Generally, it's always about stalling and the fear of stalling, which opens up. What do we need to talk about then to get rid of that fear?
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of them just have a picture of what that first lesson looks like. You know, some of them say, well, I don't know anything about the car at all, but you tend to get a lot of information about their background. Have they actually driven the car before? You know, have they been out with mum and dad or friends? Are they a mechanic? Do they know anything about the car at all? or do they know absolutely nothing? So it's a great conversation opener just by getting them to start to think about how they visualize that first lesson.
Yeah, brilliant. Steve, I just saw Steve's hand first.
Yeah, sorry, I was just working out how to unmute it. I'm on my iPad. It's a new experience today. Yeah, kind of as Di said, when 9 times out of 10 now, when people come out, as opposed to just waffling on about different stuff with the car, usually the first thing I tend to ask now is, what are you excited about? Because so many times I've had people coming out nervous, and I think nervous and excitement are so similar if you can reframe one to the other.
Yeah.
And sometimes just saying that off the bat is enough to sort of make them breathe out, because that's usually what they're doing. So
yeah, you're right. I totally agree. It is almost impossible to distinguish between excitement and I agree. It's exactly the same sensations, isn't it, for both? It's just one is anticipating a negative as an end result, and one is anticipating a positive as an end result. But the core feeling, if you like, the core feeling is exactly the same thing. Yeah, good point. Really good point. Thanks, Steve. Ian, I wasn't sure. Did you do a thumbs up, or did you want to say something? Ian with one eye. It was just a thumbs up. Okay. Anyone else want to say anything? Sammy Taylor. Can I ask you, yes. Sammy, is it still live streaming?
Yes, it is.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yes.
What did you say?
How I see the first lesson is to overcome those barriers that you was talking about. So like Stu said, what you're excited about, and helping break any barriers that they've got for themselves. And by opening that up, you're getting them to warm to you, to connect to you, and by that you can build from there. And I think that's really important. I mean, when I first started, I was the old, like, here's a picture of a cockpit drill and stuff like that, because that's all I knew. But when I discovered that, that it's totally wrong, obviously, it was like, boom, the whole world opened up. And it's about getting them to start self-evaluating right from the beginning. And by doing that, you're creating all those pathways to safe driving and responsibility.
There was something you said. I just want to highlight it, Sammy. You weren't wrong. You just have a different opinion now. You just had we can only work with the information we have and our internal workings as a functioning adult who is trying our best to offer the best service that we can. And I don't think you were wrong, but you just had a different set of opinions, or just had a different perspective, maybe.
Yeah, but you can see the differences, can't you? When you have maybe done it that way, and then you've tried another way, you can see the differences, and this is why I love coaching so much.
Yeah, I'm with you. Thank you for that. I can see lovely Linda with a hand waving.
Oh yeah,
lovely Linda, go for it.
I was just thinking about sort of having those coaching conversations, and I've been in the situation where somebody doesn't actually want to sit in the car in the driver's seat. So on a first lesson, they're quite happy to sit in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And without that conversation, and previously she would have just been thrown in the driver's seat whether she liked it or not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So without having
choice.
Yeah, no, without having the conversation, she would have just faltered. She wouldn't have liked it at all.
Yeah, no, that's right. Got your lead. I'll come to you in a sec. There was just no choice, and it's I'll choose where you go. I'll choose what you do. Those kinds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's Lee's dog. You got eaten last time, didn't you, Lee?
He's missing you.
Linda, have I cut you off?
Wait.
Have I cut you off?
No,
I think you're right.
I'm just going.
You're going.
Wait, still I'm going to say something, and then
it does.
Barking.
Yeah, it senses it. Well, because you're ignoring him. Yeah, Lee,
Well, it's right
go for
away
it.
down the garden. I'm in a tent. You know.
Oh, are you still camping?
Yeah, well.
You're on holiday, I forgot. You come to us
I'm on
from
holiday.
camping in. What's your mental destination? Where are you? I mean,
Oh, Wales, Snowdonia.
right. Fabulous, Ian.
Yeah.
Lee, what were you going to say? You're going to add?
Yeah, just I find it interesting how much they actually know about themselves, and so a big argument instructors tend to have is that you can't coach the first lesson because they don't know anything. But actually, they do. Everyone's got their own starting point. But actually, how much they know about themselves, I really find it interesting when someone says to me, "I think I'll pick this up really quick," because they always do. And it's fascinating. How do you know? How do you know that you're going to? But they absolutely do, and they do pick it up. I've never seen anyone say that to me and not pick it up really, really quickly.
Yeah,
they know so much about themselves already, from previous experience, and it's only applying it. I think that's where coaching comes in.
Yeah, but I think by having those kind of conversations, you allow the freedom. When you allow the freedom, the learning is also free. There's no pressure. There's nothing. It's just, when a child learns something, it's just so natural, free, and it's all consuming. I remember my ex, and his name's Stefan, and he was learning Pokemon, all about Pokemon. Sorry, I got bogged down with memories there, but he was learning all about Pokemon. He knew the attack, the this, the that, what it turns into. He knew, endless things about Pokemon. And I thought, how on earth do you keep that information? But it's freedom. He was free. It was just learning. It was something he was passionate about, and he just took everything on. I just couldn't keep up. It's a similar thing. But I think what you're talking about, I really like that, is because your environment and the things I've heard so far is you're creating that initial environment. If that environment isn't there, the coaching process or the client-centered process can't take care of itself. Yeah. Have I cut you off, Lee?
No,
I've got Phil. I'll come to you in a second, Phil. Is that all right, Lee?
Fine for
I
me.
really love what you said. Really love what you said. The dog stopped barking.
Yeah,
the dog stopped barking.
Last.
I'm going to check in with Sammy. Sammy, has anyone written anything on? Oh, there's no one even watching, probably. There's a couple of people watching. Oh, brilliant. Hi to you if you're watching on Facebook Live. Ian, I'll come to you after Phil, because Phil was going to say something. But we've got Mr. Phil Rubery.
Hi. Yeah, just picking up on something Lee said. Lee said they've all got their own starting points. I find they know an awful lot more than we actually give them credit for, than we used to give them credit for. And finding out what they know before we actually start really into the lesson, it does help build their confidence, because a lot of the time they don't realise how much they know. And when they realise that they know a bit, then they get more and more confident, and so things improve.
Yeah. I have a thought about that I've discussed with Ian with one eye. My Ian.
I keep expecting to see somebody with a patch over their eye.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll call him my Ian, and then Ian with two eyes, because then I know who I mean. No one else will know what on earth I'm talking about, but my Ian will know. It's just a big e-hug. Yeah, Phil, I think you're right, and it's something that I have discussed with a few people, and it's you can engage that in a really simple way, and I have done that, with people. And I don't want to talk about me, because I don't think any one of us are stupid enough to say that our way is the right way, but I have had people in the car, and they have not wanted to sit in the driver's seat straight away. They've asked to go somewhere quiet or a car park or something. So we're in that situation, and we're driving along. So I'm driving the car, and they have insisted that they don't know anything about driving. So we're coming up to the first junction, whatever it is, around about a T junction, the first sort of interesting junction coming up, and I just look at them and I lean back and I say, so can I go? And they all lean forward, deal with it in whatever way that junction is, and say yes or no. And I say, I thought you said you knew nothing about driving. And the chuckle when they realise, actually, I do know. But it's, you have to do it in the moment, and it has to be spontaneous. But when you actually get someone to recognise internally that they do know a little bit more, it can make a massive difference. It can make a massive difference. But Phil, yeah, did you want to say more on that?
No, that's it for the moment. I'll try and think of something for later.
Excellent. Ian with 2 eyes. Gotcha.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, brilliant.
Nice to see you all. Good morning. Just very briefly to say that I am the unluckiest PDI. I had my pink ticket for 7 days before we got stopped. So I've only got one. I've only got one story, I'm afraid. But just wanted to say that this is really, really interesting, because all I've ever known from my teacher, or from being taught by my mentor Neil, is this way of coaching. So I'm not sure how it was done before, but in the one lesson that I have taken while I've had the pink lesson, we did do the first lesson around coaching, and I did say to Wed, where have you envisaged yourself to be at the end of this lesson? How were you feeling when you finished? What were we doing? And it turned out that she'd already had 2 lessons, and it all centered around the fact that she wanted to come to me, was that she didn't feel safe. Her fear was around safety. She felt that she didn't feel safe with a previous instructor, and I got her to scale that safety, and she said it was right down at a 3. And I asked her why she didn't feel safe, and it's because she didn't understand the car and what it was going to do. She'd also never had an explanation of what potentially he could do to help as well. So by the time we actually talked through that, and I told her, you know, even down to dual controls and things like that, that was a new thing to her, to know that I had control of the vehicle. By the end of it, she scaled her safety with me up at an 8 and a 9. And when we went on to moving and stopping, she didn't want to do it outside her house, so she wanted me to drive her somewhere else. When we went on to the moving and stop, she'd never had an explanation, and I said, why? Because she was struggling a little bit, and her explanation was, I don't really understand what I'm doing. I'm just lifting my foot off a pedal. So when we actually explained how the clutch system worked, I get it now.
Yeah.
So it was basically just, I put my hand up to introduce myself and say I'm quite new, but also coaching techniques do work. Let's get it out of them, and that builds your rapport, and it's client centered from day one.
So interesting. So the myth that we were looking to investigate and hopefully explode for at least some people is, thanks Ian, good to eyes. It's that you can, on a pink, on your first session, you can coach from the start as long as you know what you're doing. What I really liked, Ian, was how safe that person felt. So in terms of managing the risk in that case was, I think, the biggest risk was how she felt, because then she became unpredictable.
Absolutely, yeah, because her fear was impeding the way that she drove.
Yeah. No, I love it. Well Thanks. Done. Let's not give Neil any credit for this.
We'll keep him quiet for a little while.
We'll keep him quiet.
You've got Sammy has got some Facebook messages, and Terry wants to say something as well.
Okie dokie. Oh, Terry, have you been? I've been ignoring you, Terry. Sorry, mate. I'll come to you in a minute. Sammy.
Okay, so I've just got a message off Facebook. I believe that they know so much more than realized. It gives them self-confidence once they start showing and telling me what they already know. And that was from Kate.
Brilliant. Well done, Kate. Love
and she also says, good for you, Ian, with 2 eyes.
Sorry. Yes, thanks, Sammy, and thanks, Kate. Terry's clamping at the bit. Come on, Terry.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
It's something you said, Fiona, about the the child earlier, and the first lesson is, in my opinion, the best one for experimenting, for having a go and just letting them loose. And it's like giving a child a puzzle. Just let them find their own way, put the pieces together, the puzzle, so they have a big picture in the end, and they've done it all themselves. And all you've got to do is just keep them safe. Don't tell them what puzzle goes where, what bit goes where, because that's not really going to help much. Just shut up and just let them have a go. Show them what you can do. Show me what happens. Have a go, have a play, and just let them go on with it. It's what's the word I want? Can't think of it. It'll come to me eventually. But first lesson is the best one for experimentation.
Yeah, no, I know the word you mean. I'll come up with it in a minute. Can you give me some examples of the reactions when people, or when the people are allowed to do that?
Well, a lot of it is surprise. It's what I can just do this. What's going to happen? You know, I'm not going to break it, am I? And I said, no, I'm going to keep you safe. Nothing's happened to the car. Don't worry. Just have a play. And it's, oh, okay. And you can see it in their body language. They're almost bouncing in their seat because they have this freedom to just have a go and not worry about getting something wrong or having to get it right. And what they also learn is they learn how not to do something. And sometimes learning how not to do something is more important than learning how to do it, because the same outcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just first lessons are buzzing. I love them.
That's vital, because what you're saying is, and I'm trying to think about the people who are not convinced with coaching or client-centered learning to the extremes that some of us are doing. Because what you're saying is they're learning by experience. So there's absolutely no fault finding in, they've learned how not to do something. So there is absolutely no reaction. Gemma, I've got you. I'll come in a second. There's absolutely no focus on any kind of mistake apart from what is the reaction when they, for example, stole the car? Terry.
Actually, well, first of all, it might be, oops, you know, and I laugh. And I sometimes get the comment, oh, I'm glad you laughed. I thought I did something wrong then. And it's just creating that atmosphere where they're happy to just have a go, and they know that it's not like school, it's not like home. They're not gonna, no one's gonna have a go at them for just trying something.
Yeah.
And if they do something that's not safe, then that's my fault. That's down to me, because I haven't done my job. And I explain that.
Yeah.
No, it's just let them have a go, let them experiment. It's not, coaching isn't about knowledge. Coaching is about the relationship. And the first lesson, like Kevin Dye said, it's about creating that relationship and showing them how they're going to learn and allowing that learning to take place.
Yeah. One of the words that I was trying to come out with, there is another better word, but liberating, Terry.
Yes.
I've got
liberating.
Empowering on here.
Empowering, but I think empowering is something that happens afterwards, but it's liberating in the moment. Yeah.
Liberating is the word. I had freedom in my head, but liberating is much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Terry. Gemma had her hand up first. I will come to you, Neil, after Gemma. Gemma. You're on.
So I'm on. So it's just really going on from what Terry's just said and other people. My students, 90% of them still, have fear stalling the car. And I say, right, well, let's stall the car. Let's show you what happens. Let's get that fear out. Let me support you. And they look at you and they're like, what? And I'll say, well, not break this car. Let's just get it out of the way. Let me support you through these feelings that you've got. And they stall. And they realise how they stall. And like Terry said, once they've learned how not to do it the wrong way, they're conscious and they're aware of the skills next time, so they know how to put it right. And I keep them safe. And I think as a PDI at the moment, I think that's a good little thing to support them to get that initial fear out of of the car, get it over with. I look at them and say, "Get you safe, we're all fine." And they kind of take a big deep breath and go, "Phew, it wasn't as bad as I thought." Rather than it be weeks or days later and we're out driving and it happens. let's get it out of the way now. And
Yeah,
I think coach seems to work for my students, people.
yeah, that's brilliant. Gemma, I really love what you're saying. I also, seeing as we had 30 seconds of text messaging yesterday, that was you and me, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, you might like, if you don't know it already, go have a look at conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and all the rest of it. There's a list of them. Kev's an expert. But if you just Google it, it will come up. But it's exactly what you're talking about. But I think when someone is allowed to stall, and there's a deeper understanding, and they become much more efficiently, consciously competent. But then the next stages of unconscious competence really will happen much more effectively. Di's probably much better explaining that than I am, but there you go. She's there. Well, Gemma, you might like that with your level of, wherever you've been in the past, it might be something for you to look at.
Yeah.
Thanks for your comments so far. Neil, I'm unleashing you.
Hi guys, good morning. Yeah, just building on from what Terry says, one of the questions I tend to ask is, what have you seen other people do in the car? And then go around that sort of a way, because it might not be right, it might be right what they've seen as well. So it's just getting knowledge from what they've seen other people do as well, and how we can build on that.
Yeah, I've got you. Lee, can you mute your microphone if it isn't already? Neil, tell me a bit more, because it is that.
Yeah, it's just like I say, asking people what they've seen other people do.
Yeah.
So that might be something as daft as setting the car up or putting a mirror in the wrong place, and then just asking them a few questions around why they think that's right. Why would it be better in a different position, and how might it help them? And just generally going around in that sort of manner, because it might be that they've learned quite a bit from parents that they don't really notice that they've done that.
Yeah, validating. I've got loads of hands up, and I wasn't sure who was first. Validating their own decision making. Yeah, it's confirmation, and it's validating, because as you have those kind of conversations, and they say, "This is where my preference is." Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Neil. Thank you. It's either Phil or Steve. Let's go for Steve first. Steve first.
It's just a thought that I've just had about, I mean, the coaching the first lesson, I think, was one of the more difficult things that I found, because that, to me, when I managed to do that for the first time, that's when I actually felt like I was kind of getting this coaching stuff right. And I think it's mainly because then it's a big part of coaching. When you're as an instructor, traditionally you're in control. You're in control. You're in charge of safety. And I think when you make that transition over, you're still having to maintain the safety, but you're learning to relinquish some of that control. And I think that is a massive part of it. And I think with a lot of instructors perhaps not choosing to coach on the first lesson, I think there's a lot of probably confidence issues of their own, that they are going to be able to maintain that safety whilst giving away some of that control to the learner, and just being a safety net while they experiment a little bit. It was just, yeah, I think that's probably where it comes from, that you can't coach the first lesson. It's just that little bit of fear from the instructor, more than thinking that the learner doesn't have any knowledge at all.
Yeah, yeah. If it's okay, I'll relate a little bit more about my own experiences with that, because it's not always the case. Every situation is different, but very often I'll have that meeting at the front door, walking towards the car together, and I say, which side do you want to sit? And it's just those kind of things. But it isn't, when they choose to sit in the driver's side, I don't say, well, off you go then. I'm not a kamikaze. Do you know what I mean? I can't deal with the danger of that from my own point of view. And then I say, and I'm honest and say, because I don't want to explain stupid things to my insurance company, let me know why you've chosen that seat so that I can feel safe with this. What is it? What qualities, what experience have you got? Let me know why you've chosen that seat, and then, you know, your thoughts about what's going to happen next. And it's not that I let them go straight away. I don't just relinquish any thoughts of safety or self-preservation.
But that very first kind of lesson, when I look back over like the old days as such, they're absolutely bamboozling. You're just sitting there hurling information at this poor person that's been holding their breath while you're doing a move off and stop. And they're checking around the car and they're bringing their feet up and they're keeping their feet still. The handbrake goes off and then the indicators, they're checking. Why not just say, go on, have a go. I'll make sure it's safe. You just focus on moving this car. See how that goes first, and then we'll work on the other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was just this torrent of information, which I think sometimes led to the fact that you were still doing move off and stop 4 hours, 5, 6 hours into their training. Whereas that doesn't seem to happen anymore.
Yeah. I was just thinking of Ian with 2 eyes. If he'd have had some sort of delivery, no need to speak, Ian, but if Neil was delivering to Ian, okay, during your first driving, or, you know, during your driving sessions, you need to do this and do that and do that, you know, in the same manner as when I used to describe turning the road. First of all, I'd like you to put the clutch down, put it into first, set the gas, find the biting point, bring the car up to the, you know, biting point. Then I'd like you to check all around, doing sensor, all sorts of areas, blind spot check. Then I'd like you to move your hands as quickly as possible while using the clutch control to move the car over to the sensor road. When you get to the camber, I'd like you to dip the clutch slightly, look to the left and to the right to make sure that was. It just felt like a diatribe of just now. And I can do it now. Sorry?
Yeah, can you
do that again?
Yes, I can. I got so fluent at it. It took me a long time to get used to it. So I've got you. Ian, I'll come to you after Di. But thanks, Steve. I can't remember. Did I do Phil or Steve first? Phil, you were first before Di, right?
I think so. Yeah. Sorry, Di. Yeah, I think it's really important that we let them develop their own style as well. Everybody drives in a slightly different style. You're different to me. I'm different to my wife. So we're all very different. And I think by doing what Terry was saying, letting them play with it from day one, they actually start to develop their own style and technique from day one, which is what they will feel comfortable with. And like they've been saying, it's up to us to keep them safe while they do that. And that's really where letting them play from day one is so important, I think.
Totally, Phil. In terms of driver behaviour and the studies of people post-test, this, I believe, is true, that the expressive phase usually comes post-test. The expressive phase is really dangerous because that's when, certainly I did it, I passed my test, now let's see what's it like when I try and steer, like, I've got to get better at that. Let me see how quickly I can get around this bend and not die. Let me see, so the expressive phase is really a dangerous phase to go through. And I think we're starting to break down the barriers. If we start to allow the expressive phase to be explored earlier. I'm not saying that expressive phase and that extreme version isn't still going to happen, but I think if we start to do it earlier and we get people to reflect on the what ifs much earlier, I think it's going to be of a real benefit. Thanks, Phil. Really good. Di?
Thanks, Fiona. It's really just following on as well from what Steve and Neil were saying. There's 2 words that come to mind, is patience and agenda. Patience in as much as, yes, it might take the people a bit longer to find out the way that works for them. And instructors tend to jump in too early because it's quicker to instruct, because they will get it right quicker. But is the learning is far more deeper if the pupil can work it out for themselves. And it's something they will never, ever forget, which means, as Steve was saying, there's less remedial work to do. You don't have to go over the same lesson over and over again. And this, the other one really was agenda. And this is about remaining on the pupil's agenda. I think some instructors think, on the first lesson, controls lesson has to be done and they have to be able to move away and stop. Well, who says? Does it matter if it actually takes them a bit longer to get to where they want to get to? Or is it the instructor saying, this pupil is going to look badly on me if I can't do this or they can't do this by this time? And that pushes them right the way through the syllabus of the, the driving test, being test focused. And the pupil may not actually want to move on as quickly as the instructor wants to move on. So I think it's very much about having patience with it, allowing the pupil to play with it, and remaining on the pupil's agenda and not their own.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, agenda is so important, and I think that's certainly, when I think about myself, that's something I'm working on very much, because my own experience is as soon as I come back towards my own agenda, that's when my lessons start to go not so well.
Absolutely.
I don't enjoy them as much and the pupil doesn't, and I recognize that now. And sometimes it's not my fault. Sometimes it's that the person, the driver actually tries to give the agenda back to me. It's a natural thing, but it's a very, oh, thanks for that. Now I've got to work on myself again.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for that. John, you haven't said anything. I'm just going to ask you, thumbs up or thumbs down? Do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, obviously, listening to all the comments, and as I say, I'm new to the client-centered learning business, and everything that everybody's saying makes 110% clarity to myself. And I also think that really we shouldn't pick up a pupil and assume that they don't know anything. And I think it's quite right. Let them get in the car and tell you, from my previous experience, I was instructor leading the pupil. And now that I've come onto the client-centered side of things, it's worlds apart. But I can definitely see the benefits of the client-centered learning and why any instructors out there think it's okay or believe it's better to instruct in that first lesson. You can learn so much about that pupil, I think. The learning skills, how they want to learn, the number of questions that you could ask that pupil within that first hour or 2 hours, it's got to be priceless for that pupil going ahead. And I think the relationship that can be built up in that period of time, again, is priceless. And it's listening to that pupil. It's their lesson. Let them have a go. Remember, I don't believe that any pupil is coming into anybody's car and wants to take that car on the pavement and wants to steer or take a wing mirror off. They've not gone out to do that, have they?
Yeah.
So they've not done anything wrong, right? Let them look at that. Let them analyse it. Let's say, how do you think we might do this better? You've got to listen to that pupil. Our job really is to listen to them, try and find out exactly what they know, and then just try and point them, even if they can't answer all the questions themselves, just by giving them a little bit of knowledge and letting them fill it in for themselves. And I think that's where they're going to get the benefit long term. They're not going to forget by this rote learning, are they? Like you were saying before, what you were doing earlier on. Now do this, do this, do this. They're doing it because you're telling them, and they believe that you're superior, and you're not. You've got to be on that same level. And the class itself, the information that I'm picking up on this client-centered learning on this is brilliant, and I thank everybody for coming on. It's brilliant. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
A lot of
so thank you.
I love what you're saying, Ian. 2 seconds, I'll come to you. And I also think Sammy Taylor was trying to.
Just go the same. There's a lot of Facebook stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll go to, but I just need to respond to John, because I think, John, one of the main things is it's natural for you. It wasn't natural for me. I needed a way to access it. I read books about how to coach, and I couldn't take the information from that and make it happen in the car. I needed something else, and I found it I found my way to access how I do it, and I was given a real good structure. And I'm not going to. I am not going to do it because, but you can find a way. If books work for you, do it. If you find a trainer that works for you, go and sit and have some training with them. If you know that you've got some feedback about courses that work in that way, go for that. But you need to find your own access point. And obviously, I feel quite strongly about this one. But I think a lot of people, John, actually just can't make it. They want it, but they can't make it, and there's a sort of fear inside that's a barrier for them. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm with you 100%. I just think it's access to actually manifesting. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sammy.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, there's a few comments on the Facebook feed. One's from Keith. He's put, it's all about finding out what the student knows, chatting with them, and also showing them which is the coaching part. So that's one.
That's Woody, isn't it?
No, actually, no, it's
Is
not.
it?
It's a different Keith.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh.
different Keith. We've got another 2 comments. So I don't know if
sorry,
you want
Keith,
to
I didn't
do
mean
one.
to...
If you want to do one at a time or read them all out.
Well, I respect that, Keith. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Keith. I thought it was a different Keith. I do apologise.
I often tell pupils how I would do it. Let them have a go my way. And if they don't like it that way, let them develop their own style from day one.
So I'm reminded of what Di was talking about there. And it's your own opinion. It's our own way. We find our own things. So if somebody finds success with that, we're talking about, sometimes I think we're talking about ideals, and certainly the people in the Zoom room have ideals about coaching or extreme client-centered learning. I don't know. I don't care what people call it, but my brain doesn't, it's trying to make sense of it. And I'm thinking about an agenda because I think if we do stay on the driver's agenda, we can get more. But that's my opinion.
I think it can just like disturb your natural intuition of doing things if somebody's kind of putting some information in there. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm on the same wavelength. So we've got Graham. He says, asking them, how do you think it should be done?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's putting things on their own agenda, encouraging thought processes. It's wonderful. Yeah, it's really good. Any more, Sammy?
That's it for now, apart from people saying hello to each other.
Sammy, have you got any thoughts of your own with what's going on so far?
I've got loads, but what I tend to do is kind of think about them for a while and then put them all together in my own way.
Okay.
But I mean, what everyone's saying, I totally agree with the things that people are saying and coming out with, and yeah, it's the kind of stuff that I would be talking about. I think, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'd like to invite you and anyone else actually to, if you do have any other thoughts, if you could put it on the thread underneath this on my timeline. Got you, Di, come to a sec. But Sammy, if you do want to, you can always stick it on the threads underneath, because then the conversation can go on. And again, somebody might say something, somebody might write something down, and someone else gets a different kind of insight.
Yeah, I mean, something
Thanks,
that I've written down and clung on to is, was it you that said it? When a child learns something, it's natural and free. Was that you?
Yeah, well,
Terry?
I think so.
It was about when you and Terry.
It was inspired by Terry.
Yeah, and that's something that I've just took, and it's just at the moment floating about as to what is that essence then that a child has that we need to find in our learner drivers. What is that? The essence of that. If we find that, then
the definition of play.
Yeah,
the definition of play is
freedom.
Yeah, but the definition of play, one of the ones that I remember from a previous career, is any activity entered into solely for the purpose of the activity.
Yes.
There's
Exactly.
nothing. Oh, I've got so many hands up. I've got Di, followed by Kev, followed by Terry. Gotcha. Remember the order you're in. Is that all right, Sammy? Kev?
I just follow on from what Sammy just said there. I think, you know, when you look at children, they don't really know right or wrong, do they? They just have a go. If it goes wrong, they'll try something different. They fall over. How many times do they fall over when they're trying to walk for the first time? And, you know, they don't really worry. They just have another go, don't they?
Yeah.
Sometimes they might look for assistance from the parents to hold a hand or something. But it's really just about experience and having that experience and being in an environment where they feel safe to be able to do that. You know, that's what I feel from that point of view. And if you can create that with your learner drivers, students, clients, whoever they may be, where they feel that the experience they're getting is a safe experience and they can experiment, I think the only way they're going to go forward is forward. You know, even if it goes wrong, it doesn't make much difference because they will learn from that experience and then go forward again.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts.
Yeah. Nice thoughts, Kev. Nice thoughts. Thinking about the falling over, Terry seems to have gone back to that, but that's mostly the weekends when he's had a couple of too many pink drinks.
There is pink drinks again.
I can see you, Mr. Terry. Thanks, Kev. Di? I've got you, Sammy.
It's going back actually to one of the Facebook comments about, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, about somebody showing them their way and then the pupil choosing whether that's the way they want to do it or not. I think that's a very valid point, except it's probably round the wrong way, because that really should be about them having a go themselves, and then if they want help, then that might be an option of, well, I could show you how I do it, but only really if it's requested rather than offered.
Totally
Yeah,
agree. I hear exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, so rather turn it around the other way. So let them have a go and just say how much help do you need. You know, I could demonstrate it for you as an example, rather than demonstrating your way and then say, well, you now try to do that. But if it doesn't work for you, try something else. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. But these are just our opinions of what's right and wrong. Absolutely, no, absolutely. I'm not saying anything's right or wrong, but it's just a thought that went through my head. Really. Yeah, no, I'm just liking it because I'm going to link that with what Kev just said, and I'm thinking of that kid when it does this for the hand. You know, so it reaches up for the hand, asking for support at the right time. So if you can link what Kev's saying with and what support do you want from me kind of phrase, I think that's exactly it, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. I think, you know, if you mix what you just said, link it with what Kev just brought up, fabulous. Really good, love it. Only as reinforcements of myself, I sometimes wonder, am I actually doing this? Are we actually doing this for me? I think so. I think we're doing it for all of us. Yeah. Yeah. But it reinforces what I miss. What I miss so much from my multiple daily jobs is having these kind of conversations with people, with all of the different versions of them and where they're at with their coaching. I just miss it. I've got a lovely Linda. Are you all right, Di? Oh, and I've Sammy. I've got to go. Sammy first, then Linda. Sammy.
Yeah. Just to go back to you, Di, on the comment about the one about telling pupils how I would do it, blah blah blah. He's now saying that it was supposed to be the other way, but I don't know.
Oh,
right, it's supposed to be the other way.
That was, hang on,
Paul. That was Paul who was saying that.
Right.
But I've got
another. We've got you.
One.
We're with you.
Yeah. Got another one from Kate. One of my opening questions is, what would you expect to see me do next? which can be many stages on the first lesson. Invite the client to give their opinion based on their prior knowledge, experience, or guesswork. I would be in the driving seat at this point.
Sorry, I had to let a Steve in.
Steve, yeah.
Steve had to let a Steve
So
back in the room.
the question being, what would you expect to see me do next?
Yes. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
again, it's because it's then putting the emphasis back over free learning and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Is that it then?
That's it for now. Yeah.
Who did I cut off and say, hang on, wait? Oh, it was lovely Linda, right?
Yeah. Is it all right if I go before Terry? Because I think Terry was waiting.
Oh, sorry, Terry. Yeah. Yeah.
Does he want to go?
Sorry. Yeah, he's going to have a go at me because I've mentioned the pink drink.
It's fine, Linda. You go ahead, man.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah, man.
All I was going to say was sort of linking back to Kev, where he was saying about playing and experiencing. We can do the same thing as driving instructors, not necessarily just for pupils, but as for ourselves. We can play, we can experiment. We can't, every time we do something, it's not going to work. So we still need the experience. We still need to experiment and get results. We can work out for ourselves what works and what doesn't work. So rather than just focusing on the student on a first lesson, we need to be focusing on ourselves on a first lesson as well. Because we're all talking about how it works for us, but we're all experienced. We've all been there, we've all done it. But as a novice who's a new instructor, or somebody that's not done coaching before, that is interested in coaching, I think it's quite a daunting thing to be able to say, yeah, go on, let me try and coach that first lesson.
Yeah.
So it's working on ourselves as much as working on your students. And I think we all need to keep doing the the experiments to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's what some of us are also doing here. I love that, Linda. Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. It's not about, we do need to have that self-reflection. Yeah.
Yeah,
well
because
done.
all the people here, we're all advocating, this is what we do, it's good, we like it, we've done it. But not everybody is at the same stage as us. So it's just that, it's trying it. It's just putting, the first bits together, the first steps to have a go and see what happens. We're saying it to our students. Let's say it to ourselves. Try it and see what happens.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you, Linda. That's really good. I really like it. Going to come to Terry in just 2 seconds. Lee, you're next. I've got John. Guys, we've already gone 1 hour and 10 minutes into this. Are you happy to carry on? If you want to pop out, but it's already 1 hour and 10 minutes. If you can just leave the meeting, it's down at the bottom right hand side if you want to. But is everyone happy to carry on? Hands up if you're happy to carry on. So we'll carry on for a few minutes, but only because there's too many people clamping at the bit to talk. I haven't even heard from my Ian much yet. So, Terry.
I was just going to say about a child learning. A child's learning is it's so innocent, and there's no expectation on them. It is completely expectation free. And if we can have that same atmosphere, that same expectation in the car, I think it's brilliant. And that's all I gotta say about that.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't say a lot. Sometimes what you do say is so good. But I'm not going to give you any compliments. None, no compliments. Lee.
Yeah, I just wanted to play devil's advocate a little bit from an instructional point of view.
Mute.
I think at times it's okay to instruct a skill, though. I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. If the information's needed, and it benefits the learning process, I think you just be careful with how much you're controlling the learning and the, because like you said, it's about the expressive stage, it's about self-awareness, and they're the essential things. But actually, just a skill, I think, is absolutely fine at times. If someone's really struggling, to just say, just try this, try it like this.
Absolutely. No, it's a good point. Yeah, because there's going to be people out there screaming their hair out saying, and stop it being a barrier. Don't let people feel uncomfortable. Totally agree. Yeah, no, I don't think it's devil's advocate. I think it's just pure sense, Lee. And we forget that, because we do get, those of us that are theorists in this and passionate about extreme coaching, automatically think of Kev when I say that. I think you're right, and it's if it's just a thing, it's like, why not just tell someone what a sign is if they don't know? Well, what do you think it might be? Well, I don't know. So yeah, and don't let the discomfort. As soon as you get the discomfort, you've got the barriers. You don't need any barriers for learning. There's enough already out there. There's enough already with the pressures from outside the vehicle. Yeah, nicely, thank you. I think we had a John with his hand up, did we? Anyone else? Just while I'm doing it. Yeah, thanks, John.
Okay, yeah, just going back there to what Linda was saying about the actual instructor learning from the lessons. I had an experience with a pupil, very confident driver, really learning very well. And what I picked up from her was, every now and then she just starts humming to herself as she was coming along, coming to a junction, coming to a roundabout. And eventually just said to her, why are you humming? And at that point in time, that was the point when she needed a little bit more help from me. She was saying, that's when I don't really know if it should go. Did I leave it too late? Was there enough gap there for me to go? So I just said to her, so interesting that. So when you start humming, would you like me to prompt you? Yeah, I'll be fine now. And then eventually, after a few more lessons, she stopped humming. But it was just interesting because she'd come to a point in that lesson where she was experiencing a little bit of difficulty here for me. How am I going to deal with this? And she just started humming to herself every time. So I think there is a lot that we can pick up and learn for ourselves from the pupils as well. So it's a two-way street, isn't it? Not all going one way. Yeah.
And I love what you're saying, John. And there may be ways you can explore that a little bit more in your future. Because obviously she has the need to vocalize. So if she's feeling the need to vocalize, can she actually vocalize what she's thinking or feeling rather than doing the humming? Because the humming is masking what she really wants to say. So could there be an avenue you could investigate with that kind of thing if it should happen again? Just investigate that. Is there anything else you'd rather do than manifest that in the humming? Because you're obviously wanting me to respond, because otherwise it would be an internal thing. But I think it's really interesting. But this is where the intuition takes over. I love the fact that you've got that kind of intuition because you knew it, you spotted it, nailed it. But it's about linking it with what Linda was saying about being conscious of ourselves.
Yes.
So what is it that I can do? How can I intuit that information and then relate it back to the pupil so that we can get even deeper into this? I'm getting really weird now. I'm overtired. So tired.
You're doing very well. You're doing very well.
But I think that's something that you might, just explore that in the future, because I love what you're saying. It's really good. Really good.
Thank you.
Sammy, anything else on FaceAche? Obviously not. wakey, Sammy.
Sammy, you put unmute on.
I don't know why she's drawing pictures. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just, there's nothing on the FaceAche. I was just, you were talking about intuition, and I was just doing a little diagram of that this morning, which I might share with you personally later.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah. It's not ready to go out there yet, but it's ramblings.
Yeah. My
But no,
Ian.
there's nothing else on there.
Oh, good. Well, I'd rather there was actually, but never mind. Ian, my Ian, any thoughts?
What thoughts would you like, Fiona?
I don't know. You're so usually when it's you and me,
Yeah.
anything like this, and I hear poof, 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 where you just free flow with what's going on in your head. Are you going to do it with me later? Free
No,
flow with what's
no,
going
I'm
on.
just interested. I like watching, listening. Listening, that's that skill. I must do a lot more listening.
It must, or possibly may, could,
Could, should.
should, might, may.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah, no, it's, but you know me anyway, so you know what I like doing. Yeah, no, it's just plan of actions, isn't it? What's their plan of action? What's your plan of action for today? Why are you here? What you know? What do you want to achieve?
Yeah.
So
I'm hoping that we've stayed on track. So going back to what we were meant to be talking about, I might get Kev to do a summary in a second. So Kev, I'm preparing you, giving you a minute.
Thanks.
But I think are you all right, Ian? Did I cut you off?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Well, I'll dump it on Kev in a second for a summary. But I think we've been talking about the barrier to why can't you coach from early on. And I think what we've heard is, and I'll let Kev summarize properly because I was just going to do my own version. Don't think it's as valuable. Come on, Kev, let's have an expert summary.
An expert summary. This might not be, but it's my words. And it started off with Di saying, how do you visualize this lesson? Which I think was really, really nice. Yeah. Steve followed it up with, what are you excited about? Which again, you know, is they're going to get in the lesson on the first car, or first get in the car on the first lesson. They're either excited or nervous, either or. It's quite nice. And it's a useful way to overcome barriers or break barriers down from Sammy. And with the self-evaluation as well, so getting them to self-evaluate what's going to happen. Linda mentioned choices, giving them choices and they making their own choices. Finding out how much they know builds confidence and gives them freedom. I think it was Lee who mentioned that one, with Phil as well. Ian with 2 eyes said the student felt safe on his first lesson. How nice was that? You know, that's if the student does feel safe, it's great. It's really good. Terry mentioned a few things. Keep them safe, let them have a go and play, create a nice atmosphere, relationship building and liberating. And there was a few people mentioned learn how not to do something can actually be more empowering than actually learning to do it properly. So that's quite interesting. We've got a Facebook message come through. I'll do that in a minute. Di mentioned 2 things, 2 words, patience. And she mentioned, you know, give us time with the student, let the student explore what's happening. But that leads lovely onto what Linda said later on about working on ourselves. Give us time to work with this. Coaching doesn't come easy, especially if you've been trained in the old Part 3 PSTs. Coaching can feel very, very different and you might feel alienated, but give yourself some patience and some time just to ask a couple of questions where you probably wouldn't normally. Be on the student's agenda, not your agenda, because it is all about the student. And it's all about their learning experience rather than your input of information into the lesson to make sure you're giving your 100% in that lesson. And Lee mentioned at the end, you can instruct, you know, if it's appropriate. I think it is, because some people just don't know what they don't know. And if it is something that's going to help them, tell them. There's nothing wrong with that. It's part of learning, isn't it? So yes, but the most important things I thought today was, for me, listening in a lot, was how different we all are with a first lesson. And I think controls only got mentioned once or twice. So that's quite interesting for me, just listening.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's me summarised.
Yeah. No, it's really good. I think it's it really is a good summary, I think. Again, I don't want to give you any credit.
Can you say that again for me?
No, sorry. No, I've got a caller coming in. Steve on line 1. Would you like to speak now, please?
Just remember, we've got Sammy on the Facebook as well.
Okay.
Just something that Kev just said in the summary there, and I think about saying there's no problem with telling. I think when you are trying to coach an answer out of them and it's just not happening, you are in danger of damaging the whole situation if you're just gonna keep going at it with a hammer and they're just not getting it. I think you've got to be really careful there. Don't think you've got to coach no matter what, and just keep going. Keep going until they feel silly because they can't answer it.
Instruction keeps you alive.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think sometimes you've been sitting in my car or you've been getting feedback from some of the people that I've been sitting in the car with. Linda, were you saying, thanks, Steve. Linda, were you saying talk to Live or talk to Sammy?
No. She just wrote something down, and instruction keeps you alive.
Oh.
That might be another webinar we do.
Okay, I've got somebody on the
yes.
Facebook feed. Mark says, having suffered from anxiety my whole life, I find it easy to spot discomfort. How can someone who hasn't had this kind of life experience learn to perceive this discomfort?
Oh, what a good question. That's such a good question. In my initial reaction as an answer, and please think about yours, if anyone's got answers, make sure I'm looking at the screen before you do it. My initial reaction to that is, I don't remember meeting an ADI that when I have this discussion with them, I think we have a very good sense of intuition, and I think we get it. I think about every single ADI when I talk to them, driving along, and we just know that that driver has not and is not reacting to the fact that there's pedestrian activity at a pedestrian crossing. I think we just know it. We just know it. And I don't know how that is. Di and Lee. Lee was first and then Di. But I think we just know it, and why not just ask? I think that's where watching someone's body language really comes in. But that's my initial reaction. Great question. I've forgotten who it was.
Me.
From Facebook. Yes, no, yeah, I was just saying thank you to the
question was from Mark.
And it might be a Mark that I know. It might not be, but it's a really good question. I'd love to talk to him about that if that's the Mark I'm thinking it is. Lee, go.
So I was just going to say that you could link it very similarly to the first lesson. It's almost a feeling that somebody who hasn't suffered with anxiety as a condition starts at ground zero. But how many people in their lives have never been anxious about something? So how many people don't understand feelings of anxiety? So we all have our own starting point, but I'm sure every driving instructor in the world knows signs of anxiety, understands feelings of anxiety, the effects of anxiety on behaviour. So
I dare somebody to go and do a Facebook search for standards check and nervous, and I wonder how many hits you'd get. So I think we all do. I think we all do recognise that, and I think there's a lot of anxiety out there, and we change the words. So yeah, interesting, nice one. Someone else put their hand up, and I've forgotten who it was. Di. Yeah, thanks, Di. Thanks, Lee.
I think it comes down to emotional intelligence, being aware of yourself and being aware of others. And as somebody else mentioned, it's all to do with body language. If you know your pupil well enough, you can spot when things aren't right. You know, when things don't match up, when they're saying things which look different to the way they're looking, or they look different to what they're saying, then there's a mismatch, and then it needs to be investigated. And I think that's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I would say I hear you. Yeah, thanks, Di. No, you're right, and I think it's the emotional intelligence, and again, that's something else, but that people can look up if they want to. Thanks, Di. Neil.
The thing that I'm thinking was we've all talked about different sorts of ways of doing it and that, but underlying, we've all built a rapport with the student, so that rapport's there straight away. So that's trust. So there's trust there between the two people, and then they will open up. Then, as soon as that comes, they'll open up big time.
Yeah, it's that freedom. If you're allowed to express, you've got the freedom. Sammy. Thanks, Neil.
Yes.
Sorry.
Keith says, and it's related to that seeing, kind of noticing things about anxiety, is a way you can deal with this is swap roles. You become the pupil, he sits in the passenger seat and you drive, and keep asking what I should be doing whilst in different situations. That's comes from Keith. It can work for certain situations. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of different situations, a lot of different techniques you can use. Some will work for some people, some will work for others, not for other people. It will depend on what people have said already. Emotional intelligence is, really good. Rapport is good. Intuition, and what's causing it? What's causing the actual issue? Sometimes finding out the root cause of it can then jump forward or make it easier to eliminate or ease, whichever word you want to use, the problem. But not necessarily cure it straight away either. It might not be a quick fix.
Yeah, I think that's a point where future focus comes in, isn't it? Well, what would a future you in 6 months' time? How will you feel about this situation we're talking about right now? I've got Steve and I've got Phil, and I think it's Phil and Di.
And another
Phil, you're pointing to an imaginary person. Steve, do you want to go first? And Sammy?
Just going back to the Facebook comment about anxiety. I mean, I've met very few people in my life that have never had some form of anxiety about something. And as you know, Fiona, if this is the right way to phrase it, as someone who suffered with it, I'm quite passionate about anxiety and how everybody experiences it in different ways. And I think, as I think Di said as well, it is about that kind of emotional intelligence. It's easy to recognize when somebody's uncomfortable. You've spent your entire life from the first time you opened your eyes and looked at your mum, recognizing facial expressions, recognizing body language, sounds, everything. It's just, when someone isn't feeling happy, when someone isn't comfortable, when someone isn't understanding. But I think to say that you've never, don't sell yourself short by thinking you're not going to notice this, because I think you will. Just again, it comes down to what we tell our learners a lot: is don't overthink things.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Don't hear hoofbeats and conclude zebras rather than horses. It probably is just a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Sammy, and then Phil, because the poor people on Facebook have such a delay.
That's the problem, because we may have already gone on to something else. But Paul says, this is a question I've long meant to ask. How many of you will halfway through a lesson switch seats and start driving the pupil around? And I know it depends on the specific pupil, but I'm curious. So that's something that might want to answer.
We're gonna do a poll.
We'll do a poll.
Which one of you lot all of us in the room, put your hands up if you have ever swapped seats for a pupil, whatever.
There you go. There's your answer.
Excellent.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Mark says, when you discover the root cause, how far do you go in dealing with it? And I think that was related to the anxiety thing.
Of course, because we're not counsellors, and
No.
I think that is vital. We're not counsellors. We are, unless we are counsellors, but that's not the role we're in. And I think that's boundaries. It's just setting boundaries. They know where the boundaries are, and if not, then you need to set the boundaries. There is a safety involved with knowing where your boundaries are, and I think everyone will agree with that.
And
Phil,
Sarah Everett Skinner just says, you don't need to be an expert on anxiety as long as you understand that the pupil is the expert.
yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Love you, Sarah. Phil, you've been waiting for ages, and then Di, I promise. I promise.
Yeah, all I was going to say was that I think with the anxiety thing, that's where our skill of intuition comes in. Absolutely. It's, you know, one of the strongest skills we got. And from that point, then we need to be really flexible in how we react to these people. So sort of the intuition first, and then the flexibility to cope with each individual situation.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Yeah, flexibility, lovely word. Yep, very freeing. Good point, Phil. Di?
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. And it does actually link up, funny enough, with what Sarah was saying there. I think once you've actually recognised that anxiety, it's really important. We are born fixers. Driving instructors are born fixers. And if somebody says that they're either anxious or they're nervous, our general response is, oh, don't worry about it, I'm here, I'll look after you. Or don't feel anxious about it, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's really important to ask them how they would generally deal with their anxiety in different situations, because they are the experts. They know how they deal with that anxiety and get over it, and then they can apply those same things in the car.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we allow them to own that feeling, that anxiety. It's not something we can fix, but they can. They have the answer to fixing their own anxiety, and it's just having a conversation with them and giving them the opportunity to come up with a solution themselves.
And that links really well into what Lee was mentioning, probably a couple of hours ago. Yes. Where Lee was talking, link it for me, Di. Lee was mentioning, I've just gone blank. Lee was mentioning.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Lee, unmute yourself. How does that link with what you were saying? Because I know it does.
What was I saying? About how much they know about themselves.
Yes.
Did that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing how much that they know about themselves, and they are the expert on themselves. They're the expert on the thoughts, feelings, and how they cope.
That's it. And then one of the other things you said, I'm really glad I had to do that. And one of the other things you then followed on a long time later was you were talking about if it doesn't work, it's okay to instruct if we've got a coping mechanism that may suit in the moment, because we may have information that could be a simple skill fix. That's thank you.
It's okay.
I needed you. Thanks, Di. Guys, you were right to carry on. This is going on for so long. Di, when's the other TCP meeting?
2 o'clock.
Are we all right? Huh?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Is it nearly 2? Ian, gotcha.
Hey guys, thank you for letting me speak. Sorry, I feel half a fraud because I've only ever done one lesson. However, going back to talking about people's anxiousness and things like that and spotting, I agree we should all be really good at spotting people's anxiousness. The thing where you said we're not counsellors, I 100% agree that we're not counsellors. Not here to get into real personal things like that. But if we were to take the anxiousness around the driving and help them recognise the fact that a certain driving situation causes them anxiousness, and if you can relate that to something around life, then we're getting somewhere towards the top of with the GDE and the driver education. We're starting to teach them driving for life, not just to pass the test. And it may help that if we just get that sort of if we can deal with the anxiousness around a driving situation, that might help them with dealing with their anxiousness for life as well. And as you say, that starts to raise it up the GDE as well. So we're not just teaching them how to drive.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. I also really love what I'm hearing, because I wonder how many people have the advantages that you've had, Ian, where, you know, and again, you know, I hate giving compliments, but for the support and the training and the standard of training that you've had, you've got such an advantage. And I'm not going to give Neil a compliment. He knows me better.
No,
than
don't.
that.
No, don't. He only wants to. He's only interested in the football starting. You know that.
I know. Well, he's such a fan of Arsenal. So, Kev, have you got any thoughts?
I think you've just lost a friend. You know he loves Derby.
Yeah, I need to do it. I need to do some research.
Insulted me as well.
I need to do some research on how to insult people most, because I don't always know which is the perfect team to insult somebody with. Because, you know, I know there's a sort of Spurs Arsenal thing going on, but no. Is anyone else? Sammy, is there anything else on FaceAche?
Someone's just put a comment, Graham's put a comment, a really good book that helped me recognise emotions was Practical Teaching Skills for Driving Instructors, page 61. There's page 61. On there, there's a bit about communication and stuff, so I don't know if it's the same book. But I know that page 222 in this is excellent.
Stop quoting the books thing, yeah, because otherwise we start trying to advocate things. Gemma, I haven't heard from you for ages. I wondered if your screen had frozen. You're right, Gemma. You want to say anything? You would unmute if you wanted to. Should we wrap this up again? I know we didn't do much of a summary, but do you know what? Thank you, guys. Yeah, go on, Kev.
No, I did a summary. It's all done.
Yeah, I know, but then we spoke more, and then we had the
anxiety
stuff with Mark, and I think everybody must be getting bored. So if there's anybody who's tolerated this all the way through to the end, thank you very much. It was much more fun for us than maybe the people out there. But Terry, go for it. Were you saying goodbye, or were you saying you wanted to say something? Oh, he was saying goodbye. He's trying to. Right, thank you.
I was saying I've been tolerating this for the last hour and a half. That's what I was saying.
I know. I know. Yeah, I'm intuiting that from the body language.